Today we're going to be looking at making our clay gnomes that we've kind of designed on our practice sheets. Then we're going to take our brick of clay and I want to cut it about in half, maybe a little bit 2/3 side. And the first thing I want to do is create the pinch pot bottom for my little gnome. And I'm going to round off my corners. So I'm tipping it and bumping it at the same time to try and start getting it into a ball shape instead of that cube shape that it started out in. Once I kind of get it to that point, then I can roll it a little bit on my mat, but it's really easiest if I roll it kind of like opposite on my hands to really get that ball going. And we've all made a pinch pot before. This is very similar to that. So I always roll it mostly round and I find the biggest crack that's in it, and that's where I'm going to stick my thumb in. And then I'm gently going to pinch around the edges to start getting that pinch pot shape, and then around the base. If I want, I can even put it on the table and push down with my thumb and turn a little bit. And this helps to thin it out, but also keep a nice smooth outside. See how it smooths out that outside edge a little bit? And then I can drop it straight down to give it a flat bottom base. If I want it to be a little taller, I might put it down and push down and out. And I'm going to attach the hat to the top part of that. So if it's not enough, you can go back in just a little bit more, squeeze and pinch. You don't want to overwork your clay and let it start drying out and cracking. If you want it to be a little bit higher, this one ended up being a little short. The other thing I've done before is I've gone in and I've taken out a quarter section, so a quarter of your pie, like that. And then I go through. And you always, anytime you stick clay back together, you need to score it and slip it, right? So score it, rough it up, add some of that watery slip to it, not too much. Don't let your hands get super wet for this part. And then I can pinch that together. It's always a little trickier on that bottom part. I fold it over, I get both sides. Support it underneath with your finger, right, inside while you're doing that so it doesn't crumble and fall apart. And that's a little bit taller. So now I want to make the hat portion of this. So I can take my other piece and I want to start making it into a cone shape this time because their hats were long and pointy. So I'm going to get more of a rectangular prism shape and rounding out my corners as I do this, right? And then I'm just going to roll, but I roll my hand at an angle because I want to get a cone. And this part sort of depends on how tall you want your cone. Okay. The other thing is it's solid. We can't have anything thicker than our thumb on here because it might explode. So you're going to want to stick your thumb down in there or one of your fingers down in there as far as you can. I always hold it here so it doesn't break through while I'm doing it, and then I can kind of gauge where I need to stop moving my finger in there. And we want that to be hollow. I'm going to show you how we're going to protect that in a minute. I always like to drop it a little bit flat to flatten out that bottom before I go back through and score it, because I am going to attach it to the other base. Same thing on here. I'm going to go around, I'm going to score it all over the base. Really make it kind of pointy, sticky, jaggedy. You want those to act like Velcro. Put a little slip around here. And then you always do the wiggle, wiggle, push when you put things together, right? Wiggle, wiggle, push, like that. Okay. But there's still an air pocket inside of here now, correct? So what I want to do on the underside, I go through with my tool and I'm going to put a little hole. So a loop tool works best. And you're going to loop it in there and scoop it out. And you can see now I have a hole that goes down into my hat. And that's important so your artwork doesn't explode. And you can make it smooth if you want. It really doesn't matter. This is the underside. Nobody's going to see it in there. Okay. So now I have the basis to build my little gnome. Mine has hair, so if you're going to do something that has a coil, like the braids, or if you're going to do a beard, you can do a bunch of these, and you want to roll them really thin because remember we're working with tiny little gnomes, not big giant people. So you're going to want to make them thinner. You pinch the clay together at the top, make regular braids, then score and slip and attach them to the sides. So name and class code need to go on the inside, super important because I'm firing everybody's at the same time. Remember to keep it hollow and put it on the drying rack standing straight up and down. If you want to do a boy gnome, we're going to do a similar process where you're going to want to cut off the bottom to work on doing that same sphere to do a pinch pot. This time I'm going to pinch off a little more from the hat side to save for all of the facial hair later. You can also always carefully twist and turn your hat if you want to give it a more unique feature. It's still going to need that flat base to attach it over here when we score and slip. You can also estimate where that's going to sit on there if you want to cut out your hole first to make sure that it goes all the way through so we don't get that air pocket. So for facial hair or hair coming out from under this cap, what you can do is you can do the same thing we did for the braids. You're going to roll it out into a nice thin coil. And you can make a longer one because you're going to have more strands of hair that are showing. And you can also do it a little thinner. Remember, you don't want to get too thin. It'll start being crumbly and fall apart. And you want to work quickly. Keep your hands a little wet if you need to. And the clay just a little wet, but not too wet. And you'll know if it gets too thin because it'll start breaking. You'll start having trouble with it like I'm about to have right now. And then you can go through and you can cut the individual strands of hair like this. So if I was going to do his face under here, and then this is going to be his beard, I can scratch all this up to attach the hair on. Because I could do a beard like this, but that's not very pretty. I would much rather have it neatly designed and then have actual hairs coming down. And if they're too long, you just pull them off or cut them off. And I smooth in the tops. And I'm doing that wiggle, wiggle, push when I'm on here. You can do some of the shorter hairs on top. That'll help it make it look more realistic. And then I pull to get those pointy bottoms. Flip this one over because it already has a pointy bottom now since I pulled it off on the other side. So pushing, smushing, pulling, right? Similar things here. And you keep doing that until it's sort of filled in. Once I have all those little hair beards on there, I can even go in and add very gently some tinier ones on top with my needle tool just to make it look a little bit more textured like that. Okay, be careful you remember where the rim of his hat's going to be while you're doing this because you might want to do your eyes and your nose. I think on mine I'm going to do a little 3D nose so I can do that little circle, and even though I scored the other side, I want to make sure I scored this side. Give it just a tiny bit of slip. Put his little nose on there. Wiggle, push. Okay, a little nose. Eyes are optional, up to you. Sometimes they have them, sometimes they don't. Sometimes they're closed. You could do a little smile if you wanted to. Right in there. Now, if you wanted to do hair around the outside edge, same thing. You're going to want to score it like we've been doing. Add some slip, and then you can just add shorter pieces in there, similar to when you did the beard. And then he would have hair all around the outside. Long hair, short hair. That part is up to your design ideas. Because if they get all of that clay in there, they don't like to make the patterns as nice. I think I'm going to do this one all over so that when it paints up, some of the paint will settle in those cracks a little darker than up on the top side and give it a really nice textured look. Just like with the other one, make sure your name is on the inside with your class code, so once it fires, we know how to get it back to you. Put it on the drying rack, sitting up, please.